Hello guys, and welcome back to Strategic Command World War II, World at War with our Allied playthrough. In the last episode, Germany invaded everything 2 months early. So Luxembourg's already fallen, happened before I could even react. Belgium as well. The Netherlands is down to an HQ and a plane, which are guaranteed to die this turn. There's nothing I can do about it. But we were seeing increasing success in China, but we'll get to that when I get to that. For now, I've already spent all my points for India and for France as well as done what I'm going to do with America, but there's still more to do in terms of France. Now, France actually has a unit that's ready to deploy, the Tourville Heavy Cruiser, and it can be deployed pretty much wherever the fuck I want. Judging by the situation in France and how the morale of all the units is plummeted with the German invasion, I don't know how much action this thing's really going to get to see, but I'm going to deploy it down here by Marseille. We also got a South African unit we could deploy down by Port Elizabeth. And I think I'll deploy that later on in the turn. With elite German troops getting ready to crack down on France, we need every remotely willing to fight body we can get ready to fight. So, unfortunately, the Polish Corps is not yet up to snuff. It has not quite garnered its readiness and morale yet. However, the Reserve Corps sitting on the capital, which is of no more or less effectiveness, name aside, is capable of moving. And now one thing I see as being a little bit of a choke point right now is here. I intended to get a unit set up here to defend here, but that did not really work out. I feel it would be suicide to move a unit in here to try to defend that now, given everything that would border it. So what I'm going to do for right now is, here's what I'm going to do. Take this Reserve Corps, I'm going to move it up here. So we also kind of have a staggered French response behind the BEF. The Polish Corps is going to take up the mantle of defending Paris. In the meantime, the Reserve Corps is hopefully going to start entrenching in its current position. And then to further fill in and make this kind of a death trap for even the Germans to walk into, I'm going to take the 13th Corps down here. Do you remember them? Because I forgot them last turn, I think. I don't know. They were here in Belfort originally. I'm going to send them up here to fill in this spot and also protect the fighters that are in the rear and unable to really do much except escort at the moment. We are kind of being bum rushed and there's not very much we can do about it with the French. So we have a staggered French defense behind the BEF and a more unified defense that will hopefully start entrenching, or if not, will meet a German charge 1-to-1, although they'll probably send in an elite army for that, or a tank. But since these guys are above 50% readiness and morale, these are pretty much the best guys I can send here. Behind them is the 2nd Corps, which is going to be guarding the actual city of Chalons. Can't say these names. We're the HQ that is providing effectiveness to the actual Maginot is sitting put right now. Other than that, I can't attack. There is nothing I would gain by attacking or moving forward and leaving my entrenchments over here at the mine, at the city, and in the forest. I just kind of have to let them come to me, unfortunately, and I have no points yet to reinforce this stuff down here, but that is a huge priority for if the Germans have invaded early. I think it might be based on event, but I don't know if that's variable either. We're only a few months out. It's June, I believe, is when the Italians are supposed to be marching in as well. And if the Italians march in, that's bad. Also, I want to point out something I just learned that I didn't realize. I thought this was the whole list of diplomacy stuff. I was wrong. You can't scroll, but there's an arrow here you can see more stuff with, which is good to know. Luckily, there was nothing else for China that I missed that would have been good. And India doesn't actually have many options to begin with. France, I have not spent any of its chits because I've been desperately using it to reinforce and gain upgrades and make it ready for this invasion. The UK, I've been pouring most of it into research, preparing for the long haul of the war, because this war is not going to be won in France, as well as spending it on events that earn me new troops and things like that. When it comes time to use it, I shall. So looking at South Africa here first, I was looking at the HQ, thinking if I should upgrade it. However, upgrades to an HQ are far more expensive than anything else. Like I was stressing in the previous episode, HQs are expensive. However, we do know we want to get this moving somewhere. It would cost 47 MPPs to transport this HQ. It is in my opinion that this HQ, as I've expressed before, is going to be useless down here. I don't believe we're ever going to be fighting Portugal. I don't believe the AI is going to move anything down to Madagascar or anything. I believe a South African HQ and all South African units that follow, as we know we're getting another corps, would be most useful up fighting the Italians over Africa. First Ethiopia and Italian East Africa, or Somaliland, and then eventually Libya. Theoretically, this is a smart thing to do. 47 is still a lot. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, 37 still to operate. Again, we could only operate as far as here, because the rail ends here. Now, it might not be so bad with the roads there, but why save 10 MPPs when I could just deliver them right here via this method anyway? I feel it's just far more efficient. So we're going to board them up on a transport, and we're going to get them moving. So I believe we could just put them in cruise mode, and then immediately get them to the port where we want to deliver them. And yeah, just like that, deploy, and they're already there. Just like that. Isn't that incredible how that works? We are going to do the same with this group who needs to link up with his fellow HQ. The HQ will actually just go ahead and take a step forward so the Corps has a better place to land. So let's go ahead and transport him for 28 MPPs, put him in cruise mode, send him over to this port, and deliver him here. He will be able to reinforce fully now that he's close to the HQ, just not yet. The new South African Corps we're getting, arriving at full strength in Port Elizabeth, will place him here, and then we can upgrade him and then transport him up as well. And then we'll have a South African HQ and 2 infantry with anti-air and mobility upgrades that will allow them to hopefully help put up a good fight from the south against the Italians when they enter the war, because they are coming. They are coming. It's a few months before they enter the war, and whether or not the French are going to be ready, I can't really help. I can't just give MPPs, I don't think, from the British to the French. If I could, the French would have been way more ready for this than they are. I'll tell you that much. As for the British that are in France, the planes most primarily, I'm going to reinforce the coastal command fighters. This will get rid of their escorts, unfortunately. And also the TAC bombers as well that are here. They will both reinforce and upgrade themselves, as they will probably need to fend off all the goddamn German air superiority. Now, looking at the Netherlands, unfortunately, there's like nothing we can do for them here. When they die, all their units are just going to vanish, as far as I'm aware. So there's no point to retreating these fighters. It just means that the HQ will die faster. At the very least, the Germans might expend some time and effort on the fighters. But, you know what it could mean? It could mean that simply taking the fighters and sending them out to fight enemy fighters, whether we do any damage or not, it's probably the best thing we can do right now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Whether this succeeds or not, whether this accomplishes fucking anything, it is the most valuable thing we can do with them. And aside from some morale damage, to summarize readiness and morale, it appeared to be the best we can do. They do have 2 fighter groups out here, which is unfortunate, far beyond what I can reach. Again, unfortunately. The HQ's just dead. Unfortunately, the Netherlands went to France, so France doesn't really have enough MPPs. I simply cannot reinforce any of this stuff if I wanted to, and even if I did, it would still die. Now, as for the ships stand no chance in the world. Absolutely no chance. They can accomplish nothing. Therefore, whether I keep them in port and let them get shot at, or I take the destroyer and move it up here isn't going to change much. But I guess it could be fun to take this destroyer, move it right here and raid. Maybe they'll feel threatened and go ahead and try to bomb it. I don't know. We'll go ahead and we'll do the same thing here. Because my turn is the end, right? So if it works like that, then maybe we get a couple more MPPs away from them. But, you know, they're going to be plundering MPPs from everything they take over, which is why it's sometimes good to declare war in this game despite all the penalties. Now, the Glorious Carrier here has lost 2 of its air strength points already, which is unfortunate. I do believe, but I'm not sure, that I can attack and then move. So, I'm going to do that. We are going to go attack the enemy fighters with our fighters, because we are in range. This is going to proc another escort. We take 1 damage. We dealt at least 1. We can still move, and we do have another strike. So we're going to send them out again. And proc another escort. We lost 1. Didn't deal any direct damage, but that's fine. We can now move, albeit just, you know, not very far. We also cannot go in cruise mode anymore, but that's fine. The other 2 carrier groups are ready. So I'm not 100%. All right, let's move you out of there. Let's move you into the port of Harwich near London here, and you're gonna probably upgrade as well as reinforce while you're here. Now, getting any closer to the ground here, even if the goal is to pull off air attacks, is not going to be the greatest thing, because if the Germans push up, then I believe they can attack us, and I believe ships do very poorly when encountering that. This, as you can see, is the reason I have placed all my ships in the way that I have. I do wish that more of the carriers were ready for this, but I really did think that I had 2 more months. It just didn't turn out to be that way. Now, one thing we can do, however, is sail up to just behind Dunkirk, for example, with the Ark Royal carrier here. Because we are protected by the BEF front line and this 1 engineer. Now, this 1 engineer is not combat ready. If the Germans are smart, which AI is great at exploiting this, it will probably attack them. With the BEF here exerting a zone of control, however, I don't believe the Germans are going to be able to do much more than that, get much farther than that. If we cannot get the carriers close enough to attack their fighters, we can maybe lure them out if there's any more escorts, which there probably are. And one thing we have that's going to be good for this task is the Bomber Command, Strategic Bombers of the UK. Now, the most we're going to do is hurt a couple of MPPs with this, maybe hurt a fighter group as it intercepts us, maybe lose some stuff. But we need to do as much damage as we can, especially as the Allies. The Allies, again, have the industrial capacity to outlast the Axis in the war, and that's where they need to try to shine. So what we're going for here is not actually German troops with strat bombers. We're going for things that generate them money. One thing in particular being this mine or this port that they just took from Belgium. Both of these are providing MPP value to them. We can do roughly the same amount of damage to each of them and have an escort from the fighters of 1 of the carriers, as we can see. So we're going to try to take advantage of that. We're going to try to bomb this port. Yep, so the fighters that I have been trying to attack are now intercepting, but we have escorts. So, okay. So I got 1 MPP damage on them. Sadly, that is all I got. That is not really a whole lot. That's the only escort this is capable of doing. It can still do its own strikes, but that's all I got out of that. The strategic bombers, though, can still go again, simply using the other carrier for an escort. We don't need to do 2 to this because it's at 1.5. So we're going to aim for the mine this time instead. Try to do whatever damage we can. The interceptors are flying out again. Our escorts are flying out. They took some damage that time. We did as well. But Germany and miners lost 4 MPP to that one. These are small numbers we're talking about, right? But with the air battles going back and forth, anything we can get away from them is critical. Think about that. If they lose even 15 MPP, that is losing everything from Luxembourg. If we do enough damage altogether, combined with strat bombing, you know, over a couple turns, to equal 100, 120, we have negated their takeover of Belgium now. See, this is all very important. And you know what? Now that that's done, I'm actually going to take the Ark Royal Carrier and I'm going to move it up to a safer position for the time being. Just in case they do somehow blast through this engineer unit and move on somewhere else, because that would be very unfortunate. The Norfolk Heavy Cruiser is good. Again, that's nice. We are going to need to eventually be careful here, because I believe Germany has an event where they can take over Denmark and Norway, here as well, without actually invading it. And once that happens, we would be at risk of being attacked. Primarily, I'd say in Denmark. Maybe not as much in Norway. Maybe not. But for now, let's take the Norfolk Heavy Cruiser. Let's send it back down to this line here. And let's resume raiding this line. We are going to reinforce the 2 battleships that took damage and get them back up to snuff. And I believe we have some upgrades that we can do for them afterwards next turn as well. This Salmon sub from the UK doesn't need to go down here. I try to just keep it kind of centered. We know where an enemy submarine is, so we want to try to encounter it if possible. So we're going to start heading up in that direction, staying on our own convoy line for the meantime. We have another British submarine, which is going to go closer towards the Suez itself, so it can patrol down there. We don't have a lot, but U-boats and subs can still encounter each other, and they can still fight each other. Who wins is a question mark, but so long as we can chase them away from our convoy lines, we can prevent any damage that might be caused. We do have, also, the destroyer here in Canada, which could do with some upgrades, especially for ASW. This doesn't help with ASW at all. Okay. But since we have such a close-by submarine, we can also try to just kind of squeeze in on it for the time being. The Canadians are not subject to the American doctrine here, I think. I certainly hope not. So we're going to send that destroyer forward to hopefully squeeze that sub out of there. Or maybe even force it to engage. If it engages, we can get our other sub over there and then double engage it. And then maybe kill it, maybe not. But it's going to be hard pressed to get back to Germany to heal. And it doesn't have any more naval bases out here. So hopefully that works out. Now, as for the Cumberland Heavy Cruiser that we parked in French West Africa, I believe is the exact place that we parked it, we need to get that sailing north to join up with the British fleet still. So let's set it into cruise mode. There are no safe zones necessarily from here unless we stop at the Gibraltar. But I don't think we'll necessarily need it. The chance of U-boat attack is always present, but if we sail just off the coast of Portugal, it should be fine. So we're going to sail off the coast of Portugal on our way to bring that up to meet the British fleet. And, oh god. Alright, so I'm just getting nervous as I realize we're about to have a lot of conflict with Italy. When Italy joins, we need to do as much damage to their navy as we possibly can with the French navy. We need to, like, somehow get in on them. We have good reach from Malta. We have really good reach from Malta. So I'm hoping to take advantage of that. We have our third French battleship, the Dunkirk battleship, now arriving. That's good. We're going to send the Jaguar destroyer next to it to help keep it safe. We have a French submarine also to utilize. This French submarine is going to die with France, however, is something to keep in mind. You know what I'm going to do with this, actually, with how this is going? I'm going to actually send that over into the middle of the Tyrrhenian Sea here. This is where a lot of their movements would happen. At the start. So if they run into this sub, I wouldn't really feel so bad about it. With still, I believe, plenty of time before Russia gets dragged into the war, we're going to go ahead and research logistics for them, because this, again, is going to be another country where logistics are everything. So might as well get researching that for them. They're going to have to do a lot of operational movements. This probably won't even be done by the time I start doing them, but it could come in handy later in the war at the very least. Our engineer is somewhere. Here it is. currently making fortifications, and it should be done in a turn or two, probably like a turn and a half, so, 2 turns till that's done. And then we can also, when we need to, look at operationally moving these. But for now, I think it is still scaring the Japanese a little bit, which is fine. I don't have many things I can do. With 27% mobilization, we are not making enough MPPs to do very much right now, unfortunately. Same thing with America. With only 32%, it's hard. It's very difficult, in fact. Now, with the rest of the UK MPPs, I'm a bit more split on how I would like to spend it. Right now, there's no pressing, immediate military concerns, and I haven't touched their diplomacy at all, because I just haven't had a chance to. Right now, we're doing really good on research. We're doing nice and fine there. We are set up everywhere that it counts, although we can go ahead and reinforce this some more, as well as upgrade it, in fact. Actually, both of them. Okay, I like this then. This is preparing for fighting Italy. Let's do this. I actually really do like this idea. Upgrade this HQ, which as you can see is so expensive just for 3 points. Extra emphasis because Japanese front, we've been wrecking the fucking shit out of an HQ. Let's maximize that so the Sudan Defense Corps here actually gets some good stuff. I was considering putting points into diplomacy, but I just keep finding military things to do with troops we already have with the UK, which is just potentially more cost efficient. If we are very efficient down here, if we can wipe the Italians out of Ethiopia and this part of Africa, we can send 2 corps, 3 corps, and 2 HQs up into Egypt, right? And end up fighting over Libya. And then if the Axis are gridlocked in Europe, if France falls, then they have to go through the Soviet Union to make massive progress, or they have to Operation Sea Lion invade us, the UK right here, and we'll just be able to bring more and more units out here. At least that's how it's working out in my head. Now, looking at China over here, our operation last turn was a huge success. Their massive offensives to the north have turned into replenishment times, moments of silence, where they've even backed up from some of the front line, interestingly enough. But these are fields, so I don't know how I feel about advancing. They are definitely looking more stretched. They are not going on the offensive anymore, thus giving me more time to entrench. Of course, they are also entrenching, is something to keep in mind, but that means it worked. We almost lost an army here. It was this one right here, which is still recovering its morale, and a very important, in my opinion, fortification facing their entire front, defended by a marsh to the south. They went right in onto the fortification, and their plans failed, which is good. However, we don't have enough armies to face off all the armies with all their upgrades that they have here. That is something of concern, but we are winning. Now, inching my way forward doesn't mean much. For example, if I were to move forward up here, I have no doubt in my mind that it would be worthless. All I would be doing is giving up my entrenchment levels, however slim they might be, and moving forward to an army that is also unentrenched, that is superior to mine. It is upgraded, probably has superior readiness and morale, and it probably has reinforcements back here. You think they're going to leave an alternate capital and well, this is my alternate capital, I guess, and a national morale objective? You think they're just going to leave that there? Of course they're not going to leave that there. Is this historical Beijing? I think so. Oh, why is Nanjing not an alternative capital? Okay, that's weird. Oh well. Anyway, I feel it's a terrible idea to move forward. They probably have at least a garrison here, probably more for something so important if they're willing to put an army all the way up north at whatever the fuck this is, Manchukuo over here. We are well entrenched in the hills here, which is why they haven't been able to push through. They have just backed up units, seemingly moving their way towards the railway, meaning they might try to redeploy to the south now that they realize there's such a big problem there. They even attacked our core here. They actually attacked it, these brazen bastards. We're going to make full use of everything we have here this turn. This area is now spread thin due to how I did it. They went on the offensive here, accomplishing nothing except losing some of their own troops. which is good considering I have corps on the front flanked by an army. By Wuhan, once again, we're not going to make any progress at all. We might as well just hold our positions. I don't feel there's anything to gain by moving out into a field. This additional fortification hopefully won't be needed with how this is going. We don't know how they're going to prioritize or redeploy any of their troops, but I do know I should go ahead and reinforce this plain, preparing for what is to come. So, the one place where we have great mobility and chance to accomplish something is down here in the south. So we're going to take whatever core number this is, CXX. We're going, even though it has lost a lot of readiness morale and even been attacked, we are going to attack the HQ at Pakoi with it. And just like that, voila, we have killed that motherfucking bitch. I don't actually know where I want to move it right now, but we killed it. We gain 375 national morale, and I believe every time you lose units, you lose morale as well. When the numbers we're talking are like up to 100,000+ for both China and Japan. Some of them have less, like Poland only had a max of 7,500. Italy only has 42,000. France only has 22,500, yet the UK has 100. US exactly, 100. The UK is over top morale. I didn't even know that was possible. I thought that would be like wastage. India's 100k. I don't fully understand the values here, why they're like this at all. Why some go above 100, why some are way lower than 100. But the point here is we killed this unit. That is amazing. We have no idea at all what is waiting for us down here at Iko, unfortunately. But we can, let's say, assuredly, move this corps to now take Pakoi. We can actually see the readiness and morale of this army has faltered with the loss of its HQ. Okay, they have a corps defending down here in Hakoi. Losing an HQ is already pretty fucking massive to them. With a corps down here, we have to be ready to deal with it. Now, we're not going to get to reinforce this, but this army is losing its capacity. And they actually went ahead and reinforced this strength 1 garrison all the way up to max rather than lose it. So that's pretty smart, even though they did not send any corps to assist. So that's really quite interesting. So we need to keep killing units around this army and encircling it, because that's how we're going to win, is with armies, with numbers. And right down here is where we have plenty of that. So I'm going to take this army, and I'm going to use this army for down here. I'm going to send the army south. Right now, it's just going to get into position. It's not going to... I don't necessarily see that there's a point to attacking just yet. Maybe because this guy is entrenched. Maybe he will attack us. His readiness is bad. Just by moving up to him and doing everything we've done, his readiness, everything is bad. He might attack us, which if he does, we'll have better chances because then his entrenchment won't count. If he doesn't attack us, then we'll get to entrench, and we'll see his lack of action, and then we'll figure out what to do from there. This force at Nanning needs to reinforce because it's barely entrenched and it needs its readiness. The one now sitting on Pakoi is already in kind of an interesting situation, but killing this garrison is of utmost priority. So we're going to attack once again with the first corps on this garrison. We dealt 3 damage, we only lost 1. Fantastic. We are going to move down from Hengyang again and attack. 50 national morale bonus. We killed the garrison. We did lose 1, however. We cannot move currently, sadly, but at the very least we're in mountains, which are defensive by their very nature. Now, we have some interesting choices we could make here, because this army is as good as surrounded. The moment I step on Canton, it's as good as surrounded. And if I take Amoy, that's going to hurt them from here, and it's going to probably make them panic, realizing what's coming at them. It's probably going to make them panic. But how much can I realistically do here? So I believe that the army cannot just force its way through to get to Kuilin, so long as I have the 5th Corps here, and so long as I have the 3rd Corps here. So it makes sense to thus take the 1st Corps and move it on to Canton. Great. So now the supply line has been pushed thoroughly to the point where the 21st Army is surrounded. In fact, I don't think it even has a source of supply. Its supply is down to 3. That's very bad for it. I believe its readiness and morale should start faltering. If it dares to attack, that is going to be a huge mistake, because it'll be stepping out of its entrenchments. If it tries to move anywhere, once again losing its entrenchments. But we have surrounded after killing a garrison and an HQ, an entire army that is now basically at our whim. Maybe at best he'll be able to move here, but this would be dumb. If he's smart, the most damage he could do is move down south one and attack him. But then he can get further entrenched and trapped in this little jungle. And so if this is what we're doing, we can further surround him here. But if this is what we're doing, we need to think big. Just further surrounding this one army doesn't count for much. There's no supply. There's no supply. There's no Hong Kong to march on. We've surrounded him before they could get Hong Kong. Which means Hong Kong just might not die, which is fairly important. That's an important port that the Japanese would love to have to operate their carriers. Every port we deny them hurts their carriers, right? So I'm going to march my happy ass down to Amoy, opening the supply line down here, and find a core here that actually has very little supply, especially now that I took this town. Very, bare minimum readiness and morale, but it does have entrenchment. This is a core that they were clearly ignoring. This is either something that took damage and they retreated here, or this is something that they've just been ignoring because they don't have the MPPs to manage their research, their operational movement, and reinforcing everything. That's good. That means they're panicking, right? That means that they are on the run. So let's go ahead and attack. Even though it says 0-0. We attacked, we killed one, and we lost nothing. Further hurting their readiness. Now, they're going to have to retreat. Unfortunately, this means no partisan from here, but it does mean we are going to be getting more MPPs from here. And should mean that we have regained a little bit of national morale, and means we will have more supply in this region now. I would call that a successful operation, definitely making a lot of gains and a lot of progress. This is a very long turn. I'm spending a lot of time on it. We started it at the end of the last episode, and by the end of this one, because we are at a time, I'm still on it. There's very little left to do, and pretty much all of it concerns China, however, so we will pick this up next time. For now, I hope you guys are enjoying, and I'll see you on the next episode.